Hi, welcome to Front Row Review. Tonight we're going to review the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm Vince Maniacs.
And I am David Graves.
Okay, Dave, I think everybody pretty much knows I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, a huge Freddy fan. So I'll let you take this one and you tell me what you thought of it first.
Well, as you know, we watched the trailer of this, and neither one of us, I don't think, were really all that excited about going to see it, just from the trailer. And as you know, they took out Robert Englund, they put in Jackie Earle Haley, though I can say that I was more of a fan of Jackie Earle Haley. I knew that he was going to do a good job as Freddy, but Vince was still not really convinced about it, even after the movies come out. But, I went into this with an open mind. I was kind of nervous, actually. I was sitting there really nervous that they're not going to mess up this franchise, because here's an opportunity to redo this franchise, to make it new and fresh, and have it, make another 20 movies about Freddy again. I'd love to see it. So, basically, we went to go see this. And did they mess it up? Not really.
This was one movie series that, out of all the horror remakes that they've been making, and especially out of the slasher genre horror, like Friday the 13th and Halloween, this was one film series I really wish they would have left alone. I really wanted them to leave it alone. But inevitably they were going to make a remake of it. And I think David even said at one time, well, where else could they go with the character, But I think they could have, with this certain character, I think they could have come up with something new and fresh. And in some ways, in this film, they did. But at the same time, they were making it a remake of the original, and some of what they did with the original story just is horrible how it came out in this film. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I hated the movie, but I'm trying my hardest to actually like it.
That's about what I was going to say, was that all the new stuff in the movie I think works really good. I think the pretty much the new story of Freddy here, they didn't really mess with his background too much. They did change it a little bit.
I think they actually changed it a lot more than they should have, though.
Yeah, but I actually like the changes because you knew who Freddy was. So it's kind of like you going into a movie, and why watch the same thing? And I think that was one of the best parts about this film, is the fact that, okay, you used to know who Freddy was, but now it's kind of like, do you really know who he is? And it's kind of like sort of like a mystery that was going on in the movie. And for me, that was more of the interesting part of the film, was like, okay, I really kind of like what they did with him. And they sort of kept it the same, but at the same time they changed it just enough to where it made you interested in the character again.
Well, one of the things they changed from the original story, and you've got to admit, this was a drastic change, is the whole Nancy Thompson story part of it.
Well, yeah, they did change that. And
they changed it so drastically, it's awful. To me, it was just awful. It was like they put the whole Nancy Thompson thing, this whole character that in the original was the protagonist, or the one that Freddy could not defeat, and put her on the sideline until like halfway through the movie.
Yeah, see, I didn't mind that at all. I actually liked the fact they did that. I thought it was good, that she ended up being a main character, but they kind of pushed her off a little bit, and they made some other people, main characters before they went to her character. And yeah, I didn't mind that. I didn't think that was that bad.
I thought it was horrible. And they also completely wrote out the whole, her father. I mean, they completely wrote that out entirely.
I like what they did with her character. I thought, she was she was a totally different character than she was in the original. I mean, completely different character.
The actress that played Nancy in here was just boring.
Well, again, I disagree with you. I thought that was one of the best parts about the movie was acting. I thought everybody in the movie seemed believable, and they just seemed like, you know, decent characters in the film. I thought everybody did a really good job. I didn't think she was boring. I thought, you know, that was kind of what her character was, though. She was kind of like a recluse.
And that's nothing of what Nancy Thompson was.
Yeah, I know. They changed it. This is why it's a remake of the original. They didn't follow the original story here.
Well, I didn't care for it. I mean, I really didn't care for that change.
Like I was just saying in the beginning of the review, was that I really like all the new changes in it. However, like what you were saying, was when they tried to go back and redo some of the stuff from the original, that was actually the worst parts of the movie.
One of the most amazing scenes in the original film was when Freddy comes out of the wall. And he does that in here, and it's so horribly, I mean, it's so horribly badly done CGI.
That's what I'm saying, is the stuff they tried to remake from the original did not look good. Like the wall, it did look horrible. And that was a scene that was just like, wow, that was so bad. But, you know, but the stuff they added, the new stuff, you know, I thought was good. So I wish they would have kind of not even had anything from the original and just made a whole new story.
Now, of course, the one other thing that we have to discuss here is Jackie Earle Haley playing Freddy Krueger. Now, to me, I am a huge Robert Englund fan. I've been a fan of his doing Freddy Krueger since the first original Nightmare on Elm Street. And to me, there is no other Freddy Krueger. There really isn't. But at least I have to give props to the producers and everybody that made this film. They did go to Robert Englund and ask him if he would want to portray Freddy again, or if he wanted anything to do with this movie, and he turned them down rather than, you know, they didn't bother to ask. Jackie Earle Haley didn't do a bad job, don't get me wrong. Actually, he did a fairly decent job as Freddy Krueger. However, his makeup is horrible. I hate his makeup in this film. He looks like a burnt-up mackerel.
Yeah, see, I didn't mind his makeup. I thought it was somewhat decent. It wasn't, I didn't think it was horrendous, but again, look how many times they changed, you know, Robert Englund's makeup throughout all the Nightmare movies. So by the second movie, I'm sure they're going to improve his makeup.
Yes, but it was so bad in here, I actually thought, man, I would have rather seen him in the makeup from like Nightmare 5 or 6, where it was really cartoonish, rather than to see, you know, and I know what they were trying to do. I mean, they were trying to make it look more realistic, kind of give it that Dark Knight kind of thing, and make, you know, everything a little more real. And I don't know, it just, for me, it didn't work.
It was weird, though, because it did seem like his makeup changed through the movie. It seemed like he did look different, but I don't know if that was intentional, to where, you know, because you don't really see him that well until towards the end of the movie. Then you actually kind of see his face, and they do close-ups and stuff, and I don't think he looked that bad. I thought he looked pretty decent for what it was.
I don't hate Jackie Earle Haley. He's a good actor, and he, like I said, he didn't let me down as far as playing Freddy, you know, but I think he had some, and in this movie too, he had some good lines. But the other thing about Robert Englund playing Freddy is that he wasn't so stiff. I mean, Jackie Earle Haley was kind of stiff playing this part.
Because in a couple of the Nightmares, they did the same thing with Robert Englund. They showed him before he was Freddy. And I think that Jackie Earle Haley was 100 times better than Robert Englund playing himself, but I still think Robert Englund was better as playing the burnt Freddy, though he did a great job with both of them, I can say.
I just disagree.
Well, yeah, you cannot compare this to the original Nightmare. I mean, there is no comparison. Of course, the original Nightmare is going to blow this away. There's no comparison between the two. The original was 100 times better than this. However, this is going to hopefully be a stepping stone onto something much bigger. So, let's rate this, because my tape's running out here. What are you going to give this 1 through 5?
I would have to give the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street a 2.5 out of 5.
Well, I am giving Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, or whatever you want to call this, a 3.5 out of 5.
I mean, they could have done so much more with this film, and they didn't.
Remember me.